Welcome to the DIY Honda Garage channel. The DTC P0462 relates to a low-voltage condition in the fuel level sensor, also known as the fuel gauge sending unit, which plays a crucial role in determining the amount of fuel present in the vehicle's tank. Located in the fuel tank, this component monitors fuel levels and relays this information to the gauge on the dashboard, allowing the driver to know how much fuel is available. The fuel gauge sending unit operates using a float mechanism that moves up and down with the fuel level. When the float moves, its attached variable resistor adjusts the resistance, creating an input signal for the gauge control module. If the circuit detects a low voltage, it triggers the DTC P0462, indicating there is a malfunction within the system, potentially caused by wiring issues, a faulty sending unit, or gauge module failure. Before commencing repair procedures, it's essential to capture freeze frame data, which stores vehicle conditions at the time of the fault, thereby aiding in an accurate diagnosis. The fuel level sensor, also known as the fuel gauge sending unit, plays a vital role in communicating the fuel level to the gauge in the instrument cluster. Situated within the fuel tank, this component utilizes a float to assess the fuel level continuously as it fluctuates. Its primary function involves adjusting resistance depending on the float's position, which is an effective way to provide real-time fuel level readings. If the sending unit or its associated wiring fails, it can create a condition of low voltage, prompting the system to identify the DTC P0462. The gauge control module depends on this information to accurately display the amount of fuel available in the tank. Located underneath the vehicle's rear seat or beneath a panel, proper inspection of the fuel level sensor is crucial when diagnosing this code. Several possible causes contribute to the DTC P0462 error. Firstly, a faulty fuel gauge sending unit is often the primary suspect, as it directly affects the voltage sent to the gauge control module. This unit may have internal failures due to wear or damage over time. Additionally, poor connections or loose terminals at the gauge control module or the fuel gauge sending unit can result in inadequate voltage transmission, triggering the fault code. Another significant factor to consider is the possibility of shorted wiring, specifically in the fuel gauge plus line, which could prevent proper signal transmission between the sender and gauge. It is essential to meticulously check each of these components and connections during the diagnostic process to identify the root cause and rectify the issue. When dealing with DTC P0462, several symptoms could manifest, affecting the driving experience. A primary issue often noted is an inaccurate fuel gauge reading, which may either display a full tank when it is not, or drop to empty despite having fuel. This situation can lead to confusion for the driver, as it makes planning refueling difficult. Additionally, a dashboard warning light may illuminate, signaling a malfunction within the fuel system. This warning is essentially a notification from the engine control module, which detects inconsistencies in fuel level readings. In severe cases, the malfunction may lead to fuel starvation while driving, as the system may not accurately report sufficient fuel levels. Consequently, this situation can compromise safety and necessitates immediate attention from a qualified technician. The first step in troubleshooting DTC P0462 involves verifying the problem through systematic checks like turning the ignition switch to on, which powers vehicle electronics and prepares the vehicle for diagnostic checks. Then, clear the DTC using the Honda Diagnostics System, HDS, a specialized tool that communicates with the vehicle's onboard computers. After clearing the DTC, wait for 5 seconds, allowing the system to refresh and assess any lingering or new issues. At this point, you should proceed to check for any pending or confirmed DTCs with the HDS. If DTC P0462 reappears, it confirms the failure is reproduced, indicating the need to explore further diagnostics. Conversely, if it does not appear, this may suggest an intermittent failure or a temporary issue, requiring you to check for loose wiring or poor connections. The second step focuses on checking the fuel gauge sending unit more closely. Begin by turning the ignition switch to the lock position to ensure safety and avoid any unintentional electrical shorts. Next, remove the access panel from the floor of the vehicle, exposing the fuel tank unit. Carefully disconnect the fuel tank unit's 4P connector, which connects to the fuel gauge sending unit. After disconnecting, turn the ignition switch back to the on/2 position to engage the vehicle's power systems again. Similar to the first step, you will want to wait for several seconds before proceeding to any further checks. This method inspects whether the DTC changes to P0463, revealing if the sending unit is indeed faulty. If P0463 shows up, it indicates that the fuel gauge sending unit requires replacement. During the third troubleshooting step, you will determine the possible failure area by measuring the voltage across specified test points, while ensuring that the ignition is in the on/2 position. Begin by making sure the fuel tank unit 4P connector is disconnected, which allows for accurate readings without interference. Focus on the fuel gauge plus line, which is critical for communication between the fuel gauge sending unit and the gauge control module. Measure the voltage between test point 1, which is located at fuel tank unit 4P connector number 2, PUR, and test point 2, grounded to the body of the vehicle. If the voltage reads battery voltage, it confirms that the circuit to the gauge control module may be operational, and you can continue to the next steps. However, if no voltage is present, it indicates potential issues in wiring or connections that need further investigation. In the fourth step of troubleshooting, focus shifts to checking for a short within the fuel gauge plus line. Start by turning the ignition back to lock, 0, for safety reasons, before proceeding with any electrical work. Next, you will need to remove the gauge control module, frequently referred to as the TAC, from its mounting location, which may involve unscrewing or unclipping it from its fitted space. Afterward, disconnect the gauge control module's 32P connector to isolate it from the circuit temporarily. At this junction, check for continuity between designated test points using a multimeter. You should check between the fuel tank unit 4P connector number 2, PUR, and the vehicle's body ground, while ensuring the fuel tank unit is still disconnected during this test. If continuity is observed, it indicates a short in the wiring that must be repaired. Otherwise, if continuity is absent, this would confirm that the fuel gauge plus wire is in good condition, necessitating a replacement of the gauge control module. The fifth step revolves around checking the gauge control module and leverages information from the prior steps to make sure the system operates correctly. Start by reconnecting the previously disconnected 32P gauge control module connector, ensuring all terminals align properly. You will then need to remove the fuel tank unit to facilitate testing of the gauge itself. Reattach the fuel tank unit's 4P connector while ensuring it is seated correctly. Turn the ignition switch to the on/2 position, which powers the systems and initiates the test. An important next step is to clear the DTC with the HDS, keeping in line with previous procedures to ensure that you are working with a fresh state. Finally, set the float to the E position and observe the fuel gauge's movement. If the gauge responds and moves to the empty position, it signals that the gauge control module is functioning correctly. If it does not respond, further actions would necessitate replacing the gauge control module. Finalizing the repair process for DTC P0462 involves a systematic verification of all steps taken during troubleshooting. Begin by turning the ignition switch to lock 0 to ensure safety while you work on the vehicle. Reinstall all removed parts in the reverse order of how they were disassembled, ensuring tight connections and secure fittings to prevent future issues. Next, turn the ignition switch to on 2 again. Activating the vehicle's electrical systems. Use the HDS to reset the engine control module, ECM, helping it relearn any new adjustments or repairs made. Following the reset, perform an ECM idle learn procedure to align the system correctly with the replaced components. Lastly, check for any pending or confirmed DTCs with the HDS to guarantee that the DTC P0462 has been resolved, confirming that all systems are functioning correctly. Preventive maintenance is crucial to avoiding future occurrences of DTC P0462 and ensuring the reliability of your fuel level monitoring system. Regularly inspecting connectors and terminals for tightness and corrosion provides an opportunity to catch any developing problems before they escalate into significant issues. Furthermore, routinely check the wiring for signs of damage, such as fraying, exposure to moisture, or wear and tear, as these can lead to short circuits or open circuits that trigger error codes. Cleaning the fuel tank sensors from any contaminants can also help in maintaining accurate readings, ensuring the vehicle operates efficiently. Scheduling regular maintenance helps keep the fuel system in good working order, potentially reducing unexpected failures in the future. In conclusion, diagnosing and troubleshooting DTC P0462 encompasses understanding the fuel level sensor's vital role in monitoring fuel levels and communicating these readings to the gauge control module. By methodically following the outlined troubleshooting steps, a technician can identify whether the issue lies within the sending unit, wiring, or the gauge control module itself. This process emphasizes the importance of verifying each component, ensuring all connections are secure and functional. Regular maintenance and inspection of the fuel system components are essential to prevent future error codes and maintain the reliability of the vehicle. Thoroughly understanding these procedures and components leads to effective repairs and helps ensure dependable driving experiences. Please like and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.